I'm talking to you though. You're the stats guy.
Yeah, we're trying to.
You're the stats guy, and we're the homies.
Maybe we should address the elephant in the room, which is we got a new camera. Stats Homie's got a new camera, and Stats Homie's.
It's all thanks to you guys.
Yeah, really. And Stats Homie's got new microphones. And these microphones are Greg proof, because I don't know if you remember the old microphones, but Greg would go to town on those things. Not anymore. These are Sony people, all right? Sony doesn't mess around with their microphones.
Are we sure that they care about any of this?
No, they don't care about it. Why would they care?
I'm just checking.
Sponsor us, please.
That'd be great.
That'd be amazing. Anyways, Deshaun Watson special. We're going off the rails here.
The episode that everyone wants to sponsor.
This is our most requested episode by far. Deshaun Watson. No, I was just earlier today. I was like, oh man, Greg's coming. I should probably think of something we could talk about. And I was like, you know who's crazy? This guy, Deshaun Watson. He's a little kooky, isn't he? So that was where this came about. Greg, can you summarize your thoughts and feelings about Deshaun Watson as a football player, full stop?
He's a guy that took a few years off and lost a step.
Okay, and that's now. I hate to say.
I'll do you one better.
Okay.
He's like, that guy that's been at your company forever and like has a shit ton of experience under, and he's making like bank, right? But he can't figure out how to make a document into a PDF. Okay, like he could do stuff back in the day. He no longer is worth what he's getting paid, and he just should be kicked out the door.
That's a great analogy. I like that analogy a lot. Okay, so then I want to talk about before and after the break, because he took a 2-year break. And before the break, where would you say, just ranking wise, of all the starting quarterbacks, where would you put him?
He's probably top 5 then. Like, there was a reason that him and the Texans were like they were the final 4 teams. Like you needed elite quarterback at that point. Like he was one of the top 5 at that point.
Okay, now I'm thinking maybe I just had a twisted view of everything. For whatever reason, I got it in my head that Deshaun Watson was never that good. That he was on par with some of these guys like Dak. That he was on par with some of these guys like just middling guys like Kirk Cousins. That he was just sort of, that's where he was.
No, I mean he had that like the dual threat, like he could get it with his legs if he needed, kind of a thing. Which both like at the time that was kind of Mahomes, Allen, him all near the top there. I mean, the Bills were on a beeline to the Super Bowl that year, and like he literally like took a sack from both sides, and then it stood him up, and then they won the game. Like he was on another level.
Yeah. Okay. So
him and D-Hop, like that was crazy.
You have what I would say is the accurate view of his career thus far, and
what I'm here for.
And I didn't. I was like, Deshaun, he always kind of sucked, didn't he? No, he was freaking good. So we're going to take a closer look at his career and compare it to some other guys.
Define locked in.
Nice. So for the analysis portion, it was kind of like I had to work with something that I already had on hand. And so what I did was I took all the quarterbacks who played games for the 2023 season and who started games, and then took their games they started. So there's a little bit of noise in this, so I would take it with a grain of salt, but it's generally true. But games they started, the winning percentage of those games, and then predicted by their passer rating, and then predicted by their interception rate. Now, as a side note, I also did models where I controlled for their sack rate, because I assumed that would be pretty important. If your line sucks, I would want to control for that in some way. But the results were identical either way, which is good because it means that these results are stable and they're telling us something real about the data. And it also means that sack rate doesn't have nearly as much to do with outcome of games as we think over the course of a season. But anyways, that's a tangent. Basically what you find is that passer rating, every 10-point increase in passer rating, you get about a 7% increase in winning percentage. And so that's great. I am hesitant to like turn this into a value of wins, because you could divide 100 or no, you could divide 100 by 17, and then you could say that's how many wins you're expecting. But since not all of these and a lot of them didn't start all 17 games, I would hesitate to do something like that. Intercept rate was the only other thing. I also looked at completion percentage, was not significant. I also looked at I think it's a stat head stat. It's like percent success or something, and it's a weird definition. I might honestly do a stats detective because it's kind of BS. It's like if your first play got 60% of the yards to get a first down, and then plays 2 and 3 got 40%, then it's a successful play. I don't buy into it, not one iota, and I'm pretty sure it predicts absolutely nothing. So maybe I'll do something later on that. But if your interception rate goes up by 1%, your win percentage goes down by 3.3%. Totally to be expected. So now let's talk about Deshaun, because that's what I really wanted to get into was Deshaun. So Deshaun in his last season before the scandal was at
pre-trade to Cleveland.
Pre-trade to Cleveland. This is his last year in Houston. He was at a passer rating of 112. Now, for reference, who do you think in 2023, who do you think had the best, and this is Greg's going to get this so wrong, who do you think had the best passer rating?
2023?
2023.
Dak Prescott.
That's a good guess. Dak Prescott is in the top 10. In fact, he is number 3 at 105.9. No, he didn't even get close. Number 2 is kind of, I hesitated to put him on the list, but I did. He played quarterback, but not really.
What?
He's a utility guy who plays quarterback sometimes.
Taysom Hill?
Yes, Taysom Hill.
Oh, that doesn't count.
That's what I'm thinking. He had 109 passer rating. He was really good that year.
No shit.
I know. But the number 1 was Brock Purdy. 113 passer rating. Makes sense. He's in an offense where he gets rewarded because he gets to dump it down to guys and then they make all the plays. But anyways, so that makes sense.
That's a him take.
But I think Brock Purdy's good. I just don't think he's Pat Mahomes or anything.
Yeah, no, he's in an offense that elevates all kinds of offensive play. Yeah.
Thank you. So if it's 2023, Deshaun Watson's 112 passer rating is going to be number 2. Like, he's going to be a super good quarterback. And so this is an elite number, like really elite. Now, let's talk about where he has since fallen to. So he went from 112 to 79. He dropped 33 points of passer rating. And so he has an expected reduction of win percentage of 23%. I mean, that's a lot. I did not check his winning percentages from that year, and also because he changed teams, so it's really hard to tell. So this gives me a more objective estimate of how much his performance is actually hurting the team, as opposed to the other factors that go into it. But yeah, any comments about this?
No.
Okay, let's talk about your thing. I'm excited. Greg brought his own stats today, and
I brought stats that matter.
He brought the stats that matter. I did the fucking board analysis shit, and Greg is doing the actual fun stats that matter.
So, the stats we all care about are fantasy points.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a good measure of, a quarterback's success, because it incorporates their legs and their arm. I think it doesn't necessarily account for interceptions or anything like that as much, but it's still there.
It does.
So from 2017 to 2020, let me just read you off his fantasy points per game. Mind
Please.
you, in 2017, he only played 7 games.
I did not include that in his...
He played 7, then 16, then 15, then 16 games. And then between 2022 and 2020 is when they raised the games to 17. He goes from 24.1, 20.7, 21.4, 23.1. Those are his 4 years in Houston.
So over 20.
In 2022, 14.3, then 14.5, then 13.1. And in Cleveland, he played 6 games in 2022 and also in 2023, and we are 2 games into 2024. So he's on the regression, and it's not looking great.
See, now I would not even call this a regression. Typically, a regression you think of as like heading back down towards some sort of baseline average that you
Sure,
expect.
yeah.
This was a cliff that he dropped off. And now there's 2 years of time there. So I'm going to show you a graph now. And the graph is playing years. So you'll see it's unbroken because I just picked up where he left off. And so it's like the years that he played. So that's why it's a little bit wonky. But it's kind of an unprecedented drop. So anyways, this is where the graph is going to go.
Oh,
theoretically.
look at our graph.
So theoretically, the people can see the graph right now. Maybe. Mm-hmm. We'll see if I figure that out.
It's a great graph.
We'll see if I figure it out. I'll be honest with you. So I wrote down like 7 names to compare to Deshaun, and some of them just didn't have enough playing time or years or games that I just got rid of them. So we're left with Deshaun, Baker Mayfield, Mitch Trubisky, or Trubisky. Pat Mahomes, he was like my gold standard guy. And then you also have Jared Goff. And that's all 5. So I was going to just compare them and just see. What I wanted to see was like these guys have different trajectories and then Deshaun just falls off a cliff, which he does.
Uh-huh.
But
no, it is interesting too because I know you had said off camera that like Deshaun, Mitch, and Pat are on there for different reasons, but like they were from the same draft class, which I know too well. But then, like you said, Mahomes is your gold standard. And then the other interesting thing is I know Baker, by the end of his run with the Browns, which is interesting at the turn with him and Deshaun, he was just incredibly average. He was like either the 15th or 16th or within a few of those ranked in like every quarterback stat. So he's like perfectly average at that point.
Yeah. So part of what I wanted to do here was I didn't take the actual like year time into account. I only took years that you played, and it's only through the first 6 years. And there's 2 things that really get me about this graph. One of them is about this graph. One of them is after year, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4. So year 4 of Deshaun is by far his best year. And at that point in Deshaun's career, he is looking...
This is final year
of Houston.
Yeah.
He's looking like he's going to be a better quarterback over the long term than Pat Mahomes is. He's going to pan out better. He's going to be a better player. And so you've got to build around him and win some Super Bowls. That's what his career looked like. Even if he regressed back a little bit the following year, he still would have been above Pat Mahomes the next year, even if he regressed a little bit. And so that is, now obviously they're different players and they play differently and passer rating doesn't really reflect. But I would actually argue that passer rating dings Deshaun more than it dings Pat Mahomes because Deshaun runs more and gets more running touchdowns and things, and Pat doesn't really. He just has such a great arm. Thoughts?
I agree with you on the more rushing touchdowns, but Mahomes can still like get it with his legs. I don't want to discount that. But to your point, I think especially now in Pat's career, he's more of a pure passer when he needs to be. Whereas I don't necessarily remember that being true with Deshaun. It definitely isn't true now. Yeah.
So that was my first takeaway was like, Deshaun kind of was a better bet than Pat Mahomes at that point at the same point in that career, about their 4th year. Mm-hmm. And then he takes his time off, and
that's one way of putting it.
And the back half of his career looks just like Mitch Trubisky's back half.
It matches really well.
It matches too well.
Unfortunately, it's still better.
They both fell off a cliff, and so then there's 2 hot takes to be had. One is that Deshaun was going to be better than Pat Mahomes. And the second is that Deshaun is basically just a slightly better Mitch Trubisky at this point in his career. And, maybe not even better if this season keeps going the way it is. But yeah, that was interesting. And so I also like the poetry of the fact that like Baker Mayfield has undergone such a big transformation in terms of the way we look at his career now. And I think that if you were to continue this graph, he would gain some ground in the Tampa Bay years or year. And but at year 5, Deshaun is right now where Baker was in the like doldrums of the Cleveland Browns system, where he was just absolutely average, couldn't get anything done, kind of on a downslide.
Doldrums is a pull for a word, but yeah.
I don't even know if it's right. It just feels, in my heart, it feels like what, yeah.
I think it's even crazier to say that at the end of year 6, Baker, Jared Goff, and Patrick Mahomes are all in the same ballpark of passer rating. Obviously for all different situations and reasons. Like one of them has Mike Evans, but that is just interesting how that kind of shakes out.
Say that again. Baker, Jared Goff,
And Pat.
Oh,
Per
like
your
year
graph.
6.
Year 6, they're in the same, like 5 point
Oh,
swing
yeah.
of passer rating.
Okay, so this video was like ostensibly about Deshaun Watson. That's what I made it about. But to be honest with you, my thing is it has become Pat Mahomes is like sliding. His career is sliding.
I did not sign up for this.
But he wins so much.
Well, yeah, because this doesn't include playoffs, does it?
No, it doesn't
Yeah,
include playoffs. But regular. So I think that he and Travis Kelce share that thing where it's like, I'm not going to show up for the regular season because I don't need to. We're going to make the playoffs. So I'm only going to show up for the thing that counts, which is the Super Bowl, and how you get there is by winning all the games up to that point. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see Mahomes' curve of his pass rating in the playoffs versus his regular season. I'd be curious to see how different it is.
Oh, that would be. I should have done that.
Or like on top of that, like add Josh Allen into that mix, or like just these other quarterbacks. Lamar gets criticism for not showing up in big games, so it's like you could do that.
That's our next topic. Obviously, is the difference.
Stay tuned and subscribe.
Is the difference?
Baby.
Yeah. But no, I just thought that was an interesting. I came into this thinking like I'm gonna show that Baker Mayfield and Jared Goff, and to my credit, I wrote these names down and I said I am gonna bet, but I'm not gonna like cherry pick guys who make Deshaun look bad. No. So I did these like 5 or 6, and Deshaun looked a lot better and now looks to be in the bottom half, but it's not like he's had this crazy fall off a cliff like I initially thought, where I was just assuming that he was now like a bottom half quarterback. I don't even know if he's that. He's definitely overpaid.
Texans sold him a lemon, dude.
Yeah, I don't know what to think about all this now. Who's even quarterback for the Browns right now?
Deshaun Watson. What are you talking
Or I mean, not the Browns. The Texans. Oh,
CJ
CJ Stroud.
Yeah, CJ
They
Stroud.
got the better end of that deal. Man, how did they look?
If you want to look at something crazy, look at that trade. That trade's wild.
Really?
That trade is wild. Like, I'll till the cows come home, tell you how great of a trade it was for the Bears and the Panthers. Like, they ruined that franchise, and Bryce Young looks awful. Say what you want about Caleb Williams right now, but that O-line is atrocious. They need to fix that, regardless of getting DJ Moore and the other pieces they got in that trade, and still the 2025, probably number 33 overall pick. All that is nowhere close to what Houston got out of. They got 3 first-rounders and 3 third-rounders all in the same thing, and they flipped them and turned them into just a laundry list of stuff. They won the trade by far, and now the Browns are on the hook for a fully guaranteed contract that they cannot get out of. For I think it's at least 3 years.
Yeah, and that's the thing to me that is so poetic, which is like it ends with a bang, or not with a bang, but with a whimper, which is like Deshaun Watson. He's not good, but he's not absolutely terrible. I mean,
He's pretty bad.
This season he's looking worse than he did last season. Last season he had like an 83 passer rating, which is definitely below average, but is not.
You could argue that they weren't losing games because of him.
Yes.
Whereas this year it feels they are losing games because of him for sure.
And then it's like
his bad looks bad.
Does time off really matter that much?
Yeah, time away from the game. I mean, obviously there's a lot of factors, distractions and stuff like that, whatever you want to call it. The guy's a pretty rough human being, but yeah, it'll be an interesting Netflix documentary in a few years, that's for sure.
You know what? Straight up, the comparison is is Deshaun Watson and Conor McGregor. That's the comparison.
Some would argue MJ. But I think
MJ was good when he came back.
I mean, one of those was a little bit more successful. I'm just saying.
Well, because MJ was good when he came back?
Well, yeah.
Well, I was thinking...
See, when you leave for a gambling addiction, call us FanDuel. It's all right.
We don't want to get sponsored by FanDuel.
I want to get sponsored by anyone that will.
Okay. Not FanDuel. BetMGM.
Desert Diamond Casino.
You know what? Let's go with the little guy.
I got our phone number right here.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.